Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever and whenever you are joining us. Welcome to a special edition of What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. As always, I am joined by the boy Stephen Vesci.
What up?
And not here, our good friend, the man Stephen Comlo, is ill. We wish him the best. We hope a speedy recovery and he comes back. But the reason this is a special edition of What Caught My Eye is we're lucky to be joined with the director of ticket sales for NC State Athletics, Mr. Patrick Gotimer. Got, great to see you. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So like I said, Got's been working at NC State Athletics for a number of years. We'll get into the background of all the other athletics jobs that he's had because they're fascinating too. But this is our hope is that this helps bring a perspective and different kind of way of looking at the business of sports. Because at our core, we've said this before, if everyone leaves our show learning something new, then we've done our job. So we want this on some level to be semi-educational. So we'll try to keep it that way. So my first question along those lines, alluding to that, is how did you get into working in athletics?
Yeah, so sort of an interesting path. And it's funny, this is going to go full circle for you immediately is, when we were coming out of Little League, right, there was this new district, right? The first level of all-stars coming out of Little League. And I was not good enough to be an all-star, but I was so baseball obsessed that one of our coaches approached me and was like, hey, I don't want you sitting on your ass all summer. I want you to be here working and making sure that you're otherwise not just playing video games and eating potato chips all summer. And so I'm like, cool, I can collect volunteer hours and watch baseball. So I get to the first tournament and they've got me on the t-shirt sales stand. Which is great, except the t-shirt sales stand is sort of between two of the fields. It's not within a direct sight line of either field. And I'm like, well, this is BS. I need to be seeing the baseball game. You got to put me on something else. And he's like, you can come watch baseball when you're done selling those t-shirts. And so as a frankly shithead little kid, right, as an 11-year-old, I just start being annoying to every parent. Right. I'm like, do you want to buy a t-shirt? Do you want to buy a t-shirt? Do you need one for grandma? I'm getting rid of these shirts because I'm not standing here for an entire week and not getting to watch baseball while I can hear it going on around me. And so after 3 days of pestering all these parents, I'm sold out of all the shirts and I get to go stand up next to the fence. And he goes, what are you doing over here? I thought I told you just sold all the shirts. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. And he's like, snap. Okay, cool. You do your thing then. So they rewarded me the next year by putting me back on t-shirt sales. And they're like, cool,
we're good of a job.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So I got clever with it at that point as we started doing pre-orders so that we didn't have to buy as much inventory on the back end to try and sell at the tournament. So we're still making the revenue, but then I don't have to work as hard during the tournaments. And that led to then, okay, there's not as much work for you to do here. We're going to give you another job. And they started having me do 50-50 raffles. And then I was working concessions. And there was a day I was working, we had a state tournament coming to town, right? It's the next level between All-Stars and Williamsport, right? So state tournament. I looked down and I had I'm 18, 19 years old. And I was handling $10,000 in cash each day for 2 weeks. And I was like, this is ridiculous. How did I get here?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I better put this to good use. And so went to school at James Madison University for sport management. My first kind of foray into the college side was as a facility assistant. And I went in for the interview and they're like, hey, your resume looks great, but we have one question for you. And I was like, cool, what is it? They go, do you know how to fix a baseball mound? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Because I'm working all these Little League tournaments. They invite me to the baseball stadium at JMU. And they're just like, hey, 7:00 in the morning on Saturday, you got to be there. And if you can fix the mound, you've got the job. Oh,
yes.
I walked in, right? It's 6:45. It is February in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So it's maybe 30 degrees. Yeah, thank God they had turf. So I walked into they're like, the equipment's over in that closet. Just go in there and it, is collect the stuff. And I opened that door and it was disgusting. Everything's thrown everywhere. And I'm peeling pieces apart from and I'm like, what? Who the hell put this together? Who closed last night? And so as I'm pulling stuff out, they realize I'm pulling out the right stuff. And they're just like, cool, you've got the job, fix the mound. We're not even going to watch you do it. You're just pulling out the right stuff already.
Got
so
the right stuff. You passed the test.
You passed the test. So then I just started showing up, right? As anything they needed, they were like, okay, cool. You've done enough baseball stuff, but like there's not enough baseball stuff to do in the fall. We're going to put you over on football too. And like, they're like, hey, put tables over there for game day, put this box over there, right? And it starts with really small stuff. And I worked up to a point where I was literally the guy checking the light bulbs in all the suites because somebody who's paying for a suite expects all of the lights to work all of the time. So like literally that was the grunt work that I had to do. And then I parlayed that into just like managing the events themselves. Right. So if somebody rents the stadium for an off season event, right? They rent out the club for right. We used to do a lot of like wedding receptions because it was just a big space. And if somebody was a JMU fan, they're like, cool, we can have our wedding reception at the stadium. Like, that's awesome. So I would just basically stand up there, and if something went wrong, right, the projector doesn't turn on, the whatever, right, the light goes out, the bathroom starts to flood, like somebody's there to solve it. And I figured out I was really good at it. So from there, went on. I was the group events manager for a minor league baseball team up in Maryland, the Bowie Bay Sox, right? So double A affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. I managed suites there, right? So we had like 13 suites plus a picnic area, plus a birthday tent, plus a 10,000 seat stadium. I spent 2 years in minor league baseball. That is a grind, right? It's like 7:30 in the morning to like 11:30 midnight every day for 71 games throughout the season. And I was like, this is not for me. So I went back into the collegiate side. I spent 4 years at George Mason University, um, and then made the jump in 2020 over to NC State. Um, is it's and kind of worked my way up from there. So it's been these small, like very linear progressions, but I mean, it literally started as, right, selling T-shirts and being that pestering little snot as an 11-year-old kid, to get the job done. So
Yeah, I love it. I love that you went into the detail too, because, so many kids are interested in sports like we were growing up, right? And, as we also know as adults, right, the likelihood of any one individual becoming a professional athlete is so astronomically low, even if you have the physical gifts to do so. But there's all these avenues to get involved in sports that a lot of people don't know about and people just aren't told. And we need more people like you to come on shows and just give
it's
presentation, just talk about, hey, this is what I do, this is how I got here, you can too. Like, it's a job that's available to people as long as they have a passion for sports.
it's so funny, right? When we were leaving our little league team as 12-year-olds, right? Coach Detmer called me and he's like, "You're going to be the commissioner of baseball one day." And I kid you not, I've got a meeting with Jim Phillips tomorrow, who's the commissioner of the ACC. So like, okay, you were close,
Yes.
but it's that level, right? That path. So it's fun. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of work, right? Minor league baseball, I was doing some weeks where it's like 120 hours, right? And especially like camp weeks, right? So they do baseball camp in the morning and you've got to be set up there. The kids are arriving at 7 o'clock, which means you've got to be set up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock so that when the players get there, they've got like, this is the dumbest thing. So one of the guys who used to be working the camps, right, because he was on a minor league contract at the time, was Donnie Hart. And Donnie played for the Orioles for like 3 or 4 years. But Donnie knew if he was working camp, he needed coffee first thing. Otherwise, he was just going to be a jerk to all the little kids. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm there at 5 o'clock to make sure Donnie's got his coffee so that we can do baseball camp and check people in at 7 o'clock so that they can get out of here at 3. Those guys can go warm up. Oh yeah, then I've got to go set up for the actual game that evening, and it's a fireworks night, so I'm going to be picking up fireworks after the game. I mean, it's this very like there's a lot going to it. Minor league baseball was not for me, but the no, I mean it's that willingness to do that little bit of grunt work. There's a lot of payoff on the back end. Is I mean I work with some of the coolest people on the planet, and we absolutely love. I mean, my office is probably the coolest office in North Carolina. I
No,
sit at the 45 yard line field side, right? So I'm over top. I'm on the press box level, right? And to my left is Lenovo Center, which is where our men's basketball team plays and the Carolina Hurricanes play. And to my right is the Raleigh skyline because I'm high enough up that I can get the full view of it. And then in front of me, a couple of yards is the 57,000 person football stadium. So it's an incredible field to work in.
yeah. So you brought up the Bay Sox and minor league
Yeah.
baseball, which we're all have share an affinity for. I know we are the Tide, Norfolk Tides, the Richmond Flying Squirrels, all that great stuff. Comlo, our friend, goes to Fred Nats games in Fredericksburg
Okay.
all the time. So what is the biggest difference from being at a minor league or just baseball to going to the intercollegiate route in
So
terms of, I guess, like what you do on a daily basis?
yeah, that's a really good question. On the minor league and on the minor league side, and you guys can attest to this being right, having gone to games regularly. Like, what was the score of the last Tides game you went to? Do you
Actually,
give?
no, I think I do remember it. I think it was
But you
like
have to think about it,
17 to
right?
2.
Okay, so it's an
I don't know, man.
outlier,
The
but
last
like,
Flying Squirrels game I was at was, I mean, well, it was like probably a year ago too, but it was, happy hour Fridays,
yeah, do you
$2
care? Right?
beers.
Like that's
Yeah,
the
no,
real
I don't.
question is do you actually care what the score was? And the answer is no,
No, you
right?
get a
Like
chance. What I love too about the minor leagues is that one, you get some cheap beers, but you get a chance to be close to field level action with high level athletes, high level
it's
baseball
vibes,
players.
right? Like you're there for vibes.
Yeah.
It's funny. You guys know my twin brother just well enough is right, not a sports guy, right? And I will tell you, every year he was the first one to make it to a Major League Baseball game. He lived in LA at the time. This was for like 10 years running. He was the first one to make it to a baseball game. We asked, why are you going to Dodgers games? And he's like, I need my hot dog. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we get
Dodger
it. Like, he
dog.
wants a Dodger dog. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. He's does not care about, right. That was like Andre Ethier. Like, that was his year.
Yes, Matt Kemp
And
getting those
yeah, Matt
tees.
Kemp,
Yeah.
exactly.
Adrian
Like,
Gonzalez.
yeah, is Kershaw was just coming up from the minor league ranks. Like, they weren't at the level they're at now. But he was like, nope, need my hot dog. So that's minor league baseball. But when you get to college, right, like, there are people invested. Like, there's an expectation of winning. And when I was at George Mason, right, like, was there for 4 seasons. And I think all 4 seasons we placed fifth of like 14 teams in the conference. Right. And frankly, I think that's pretty good. Right. It's respectable, but our fans weren't happy with it. Right. And so at the end of our coach at Dave Paulson was the coach at the time. He's now at Holy Cross. They were just like, yep, we can't renew your contract because you're not winning at the level our fans want it to be. And now at a school like NC State, like you have a guy like Kevin Keats who came in, right, literally went to the Final Four and the next year doesn't make the ACC tournament, and our athletic director has to be like, "Hey, thanks for playing. Like you're out." And that's the big change, right? Is you lose a couple of games in minor league baseball, even if you're below a 500 team, if you're developing guys, you're going to retain your job. On the collegiate side, you've got to develop guys still. Don't get me wrong, but there's still an expectation that you have to go do good things, right? As you still have to go get wins on the board.
Yeah, makes sense. And kind of like we've talked about this before, but like donors, you got to keep the donors happy. You got to keep the fans happy. Like there's a separate
Oh yeah,
base, whereas like at a professional team, yeah, you're right. I mean, minor league level, you're right. It's all about developing talent, but even at like the highest level too, right? Ultimately, the Minnesota Twins aren't necessarily answering to their fans, right? They answer to an owner who's going to decide what to do. And I mean, we saw with the A's, right? That they clearly weren't answering to their fans, that their owner had an agenda, and that's part of that business there, and that's how like way different from what you see at a collegiate level.
there's a balance to it, right? Because at the end of the day, right, the owners are able to own because they're making some level of money, right? There's some owners there that are just like, yeah, this is essentially a philanthropy for me. I want my team to win and I'm a fan. And then on the opposite end, there's guys that are only in it for the money, right? The Dan Schneiders of the world that are like, I need to make money at all cost. I don't give two shits about the team. And it's like, whoa, time out. We got to find the balance in here. And that's where most owners end up. And I think of the collegiate space where we're all nonprofits, right? There's still a little bit of that answer is you've got ADs that have to be responsible to the bigger donors, right? You've got your major gift guys that, hey, they're funding 80% of the program. But then when you talk about the fan base as a whole, they're going to have their torches and pitchforks ready if you start losing football games. The major gift guys can love your coach, right? And oftentimes, right, because there's only a handful of them, right, or maybe a couple dozen of them, they get to know the coach personally, right? So they might have an affinity for him, but that's not the masses. And so there's definitely a balance between the two of, okay, hey, here's how we keep these guys happy. Here's how we keep these guys happy. Let's show a path forward.
So, what does a typical day in your job look like? Besides, talking to ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an outlier. But no, I mean, I oversee two different kind of units within ticket sales, right? So we've got one side is service and retention. That's going to be those guys who take care of our current season ticket holders, right? So you get like right, if you're a season ticket holder and a donor, you get a certain level of, right, service. Then we've got our acquisitions team, and our acquisitions team is strictly about finding new business. They're the ones finding new season ticket holders, new group sales, mini packs, you name it. And they're going to be kind of those acquisitions is the real nitty gritty, right? Like you're talking to people that have never been talked to before. There's some cold calling aspects to it. And so we have those two units, and I work closely with both of them to say, hey, here's our game plan. Here's what we're looking for coming up. There's a lot of lead management as far as, right, we use a CRM to track everybody and say, hey, here's where we want to be. Here's what your call totals are, and making sure that everybody's picking up the phone and having those resources there. Then I go, right, my role specifically outside of managing those guys is I coordinate between multiple units. So we've got our fan engagement team. They're the ones who take care of like in-game promotions, right? So when you see the kids riding, right, there's a TV timeout during a basketball game and you see the kids come out with like the little tricycles to race. There's a team that has to manage that so that everything is lined up perfectly. That's what we see and we recognize. But the TV timeouts, like they're the ones coordinated with the TV guys. And there's literally a guy with a mic there who's like, hey, we're going on a timeout. For football, you'll see the guy walk out. He's got they call him a red hat, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah, red hat. So he steps out and he's like, hey, this is, and he holds up the board. It looks like one of the soccer like check-in boards. And here's how much time is left on the clock and how much time is left is in this commercial. They're the ones coordinating it, right?
Guy.
And yeah, right. And
I would see him at West Virginia games, and every time, because you have like when you're at the game, you don't know when a media timeout's going to come or not. And then I'd see this guy walk out there with the red hat. I'm like, oh, here we go.
So
it's going to take another 5 minutes.
The fan engagement guys are the ones who coordinate all of that, right? And realistically, on our side, we need to be able to tell fans, hey, here's what's coming for game day. Like, here's what game day is going to look like. One of my absolute favorite promotions every year, we're doing it against FSU this year, is Military Appreciation Day. And those guys coordinate the banner for after the third quarter. And when I say banner, I mean literally American flag. And it is 120 yards long by 50 yards wide. And they get the entire, like as many ROTC alumni, like Fort Bragg guys coming up to Raleigh to carry this banner out. And they get this thing out quick. You got to make sure it doesn't touch the ground though, right? Like that is not happening. Not at our stadium.
Burn that whole 120
right?
Flag.
No chance that, right? And these guys are so quick about it. And it looks so right. And then they get that little tiny wave to it, which over 120 yards looks amazing. They coordinate, right? At the same time, a couple of years ago, our AD used to be the AD at Army. So he's got a few connections, right? So there was a flyover, right? Most flyovers for us are like a couple of biplanes, right? Like we've got a whole show crew and their alumni and whatnot. And I think they're cool. Don't get me wrong. For our first military appreciation game, he made a phone call and had a connection. And we got an AC-130 gunship, which is massive, right? Like it's huge. And you see this thing coming. We're getting phone calls on Monday, like, why the hell did you have this thing over our house? And we're like, it's the Army, baby. Like we're just having fun. Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of on the fan engagement side. But then, I work with the digital strategy unit as well. That's the other big unit I work with. Is they're the ones doing all the Facebook posts, right? It's all the Facebook, Twitter, and we're super strategic with how we do it to make sure that we're telling a story in the right. So just like you guys do, right? It's all storytelling. We have to be able to tell a story that connects with our fans, because it keeps them engaged and it keeps them excited about our program. And then they're going to buy more tickets. And I think when all three of those things work in tandem, we get this really fantastic outcome. And if we, to kind of get back to the sports side of what we're doing, with our newest big story has been the hire of Will Wade, right? Yeah. It's huge news for us. And Will's persona is one that is, I call it an anti-hero, right? Like he's going to be unapologetically in favor of NC State. And that's part of the reason our fans love him. With that, he wants to be He wants to be out in front and be a man of the people, right? As he's going to be out there shaking hands and kissing babies. And he says to us, he goes, hey, I want to make some phone calls to season ticket holders. And you can go, like, if you guys have not seen this video yet, you can go find it. Like, I think it got picked up by Barstool and it had something like 2.4 million views or something. Like, it was insane. But I literally printed out a sheet of people who had not yet picked up season tickets for this coming year. And I was like, okay, coach, here's who we're going to call. And he's like, cool, you've got 45 minutes of my time. I'm like, cool. here's my phone. Like I'm typing in numbers for him and handing him the phone back. And I've got one of my other AEs. We're going tandem on the phones as while he's on the phone with one guy, I'm typing in the number for the next guy so that if he has to leave a voicemail, we're hitting end on that one. And this one's already ringing so that we can get through as many people as possible. But with it, we had like 5 or 6 people pick up. And the video that came out, right? The guy is just like, no, like it can't be Coach Wade. Like, why would Coach Wade be calling me? And he's like, you're pulling my leg. And he's like, listen, I'm going to post this on social media later. You're going to see that it's me. Like, this is real. And the video just ended up amazing, but it's that personal connection and that storytelling that allows us to do what we do on the ticket sales side. Is it all kind of connects back to it and gets us to where we want to be.
So the t-shirt cannon guys, that's under your purview?
No, so that's going to be fan engagement, but we work so closely with them that we're like, hey, listen, like the guy, right? So when somebody has a problem, right? If you got a problem at a Tides game, the first person you're calling is your rep, right? Like you're going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, what the heck? And we end up being those guys, right? If somebody's got a problem at an NC State event, they're calling the person that they've got their phone number, which is me, right? Like they're saying, hey, I had this issue. And so, hey, I've been coming to games for 30 years and you've never shot a t-shirt my way. I got to pick up the phone and call fan engagement and be like, hey, I'll give you a good story here. My second year at NC State, right? First game back after COVID-19, the fan kind of mix had kind of been jumbled up because it wasn't everybody still. There was still some leeriness about coming back into the stadium. And that ended up creating some like people that are next to each other with seats that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
Right. It tends to kind of be pocketed, right? You've got your people that have been there forever, and then you work your way back as you get your 40-year season ticket holders with your 30, your 20s, your 10s, and then you get your recent grads behind that. And instead, after COVID, this was a grandfather and his grandson at a game. And in the row behind him, he had a set of recent grads. Recent grads have been tailgating, right? Having a good time.
Why else? What else are they
Right.
do?
Oh, yeah. Right. They're having a good time, as is their right, except we scored a touchdown. And the recent grad jumps up, right? He's got a beer in his hand and he goes like this, touchdown. Beer goes everywhere, soaks this guy's grandson, right? And so the guy's like, right, like, what the hell, right? So he's calling me. I'm calling fan engagement. I'm like, I need every t-shirt you have in this building right now. Like, I don't care what size it is. Like, this guy's got to get taken care of, right? So I'm trying to keep the grandfather happy because I want him to buy season tickets next year, but like his grandson needs to get taken care of. And so, right, I'm like, the kid, by the end of the game, the kid's got like 8 different t-shirts, right? I think he had a Tuffy stuffed animal. Like he's like 6 and he's just like, his parents are going to call me and be like, what the heck did this grandfather get him into? And what did you let happen? And meanwhile, like we're trying to just appease this guy to make sure he's taken care of. And at the end of the day, he comes back and he's like, you guys like jumped on this. And so sure enough, the next year he's a season ticket holder still. And like, he's like, yeah, you guys took care of us when something went wrong. And that's really where, right, my job ends up being putting out just a ton of fires like that. Another probably 2 games after that, right, we hosted I want to say like number 8, number 9 in the country, Clemson. And so game goes into, we have a chance to go ahead at the buzzer, right, at the end of regulation. And we just shanked a field goal, right? So it's tied. We're going to overtime. First overtime, both teams score. Second overtime comes up and we're on offense first. We score. But then the second overtime comes up and you can like the place is shaking. I've never been in an environment like this in my life, right? All 57,000 seats are full. This little kid in front of me is like dancing in the aisle. And I'm like, ooh, we're 4th down here. And like, if we could stop Clemson here, we're going to win. But right, in my head, right, if we stop Clemson here and we win, they're going to storm the field. And I've got like this 8-year-old in front of me who's dancing in the aisle. And the kid got scared, right? Because sure enough, we stopped them. The place erupts. But I grabbed this little kid from the aisle and like shoved him back in his seat real quick. Because sure enough, these stampede of people are coming down this. And like the grandfather turns around next to him, right? And he's like, my God, thank you. Like, I just saw what happened. The kid's like crying because he's like, this guy just yanked me. And the grandfather's like, this guy just saved your life. Like, you would have gotten railroaded. But it's moments like that, right? It's just taking care of people when, even, right, if we can get out ahead of it, even, like, that's the best case scenario, is we have to kind of anticipate what some of those needs are before we even get there. But that's the coordination between each of the units, is to say, hey, what's somebody's game day experience going to look like? And that's what really, right.
Do you run the risk sometimes of anticipating too much and maybe changing something that maybe shouldn't have been changed, or people that you thought would have been a great idea that maybe some people said, why did we change this? Should have just left it the way it was.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the joy of like where our leadership allows us to kind of fail up, right? Is they encourage us to try new things. And if we try something and it doesn't work, cool. Like we tried it, right? And it allows us to get that experiment. But then when we try something and it works really well, like, wow, right? The really good example, right? For the most part, I worked with teams where like account executives and ticket sales guys never had access to coaches, right? Like that's a no, no, no. That's the athletic director's job, right? For us to have access to coaches right now, a video blows up and it's got, right, just a ridiculous number of views. And now we've got, so on any given season, we sell between like 8 or 7 and 8,000 season tickets for men's basketball typically. And this year we're at almost 10. And it's because of videos like that. And right, as people are excited about the program, we still got a little work to do. Don't get me wrong. We're not quite at 10, but to play in an arena that's 19,500 people, that's over half our tickets are sold as season tickets. And then you hold another allotment for students. Like that means most of our games are already, if not sellouts, then already close to sellouts just based on season tickets. And that changes the trajectory of your program, right? Is I think, I know, Nick, you've got an affinity for UVA. I think UVA has
Oh,
kind of
West
been on
Point.
a down streak. Yeah, right. Is they've been down on their luck the last few seasons, but I think with the absence of Tony Bennett, right? Like there needs to be a little spark in the ACC, right? I love John Shire. Like I think he's a good guy, but I think there needs to be this little fire kind of lit under the ACC. So we're still the predominant basketball program in the right conference in the country. And I think Will is that guy.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about on the show about that with ACC basketball of how it's like the changing of the guard, and yeah, you got guys like Ryan Odom,
Kelsey.
who UVA hired is a great coach, but you got to prove it at that ACC level, and same thing kind of with Will Wade of well, yeah, he went to LSU, but then that ended unceremoniously, goes to McNeese, parlays that to NC State. Like you've got guys like this who are excellent coaches, but the ACC needs them to now show up because there's been massive turnover and all the names are gone.
Pat
Yeah, I mean,
Kelsey,
you
right?
see
That's
Coach.
one that
Yeah, Coach L's out, right? Jim Boeheim's out. You've got
Yep.
Leonard
Mike
Hamilton out
Bray,
now. Mike
Leonard
Bray,
Yep.
yeah, like um,
yeah,
that's not
Leonard
even talking
Hamilton.
Coach K and Roy Williams, right? Like there's a lot of legendary coaches there. And I think on our perspective from the ticket side on what we can do, right? Like we're in charge of, right? Like our job is to make sure the building's full because that's going to create the environment. And when you have these like packed houses, it's right. I went to the 2023, right? We hosted Duke on like 4 days after New Year's. And we came out packed house, right? It's a red building with like spots of blue because it's easy to spot that. And I'm doing mobile tickets outside, right? So what I mean by that is the old guys who can't get their tickets loaded onto their phone. My job is to go help the old guys figure out how to load the tickets onto their phone. And I did that probably 5 minutes into the game. And so I came inside. We've got a couple of guys that are just kind of slinging tickets on the inside, right? Hey, what's the next game you guys need tickets to? And while the game's going on, there's not a ton for those guys to do. So I went up to their table. I was like, hey, how's it going? How pregame go? And they're like, you need to go check the score. So they're like, okay, cool. Like it's a Duke. Like we're getting smacked already. Like, what are you talking about? They're like, go check the score. And sure enough, we're up like 15-0. Like we're running a shutout against Duke. And I'm sitting here like, what the heck? But it's because, right, like Duke couldn't get a rhythm, right? Our fans are being so loud in that arena that they're changing the game. And we saw the same thing. I think this is another good example is women's basketball. We got a chance to host UConn probably two seasons ago now. And it was very clear on the phones leading up to the game that UConn fans were very used to just having their way wherever they went, right?
Can
They
attest to
go
that.
to, yeah, like they go to
First season.
is East Carolina, right? And they're picking up as many tickets as they want. They go to a Memphis, they're picking up as many tickets as they want because they don't have the crowds to be able to kind of combat the women's basketball crowd from UConn. And then UConn gets to us. And anybody that's got an 860 area code or a 203 area code, we're like, no thanks, cool, bye. Like they're like, no, we're gonna hand you money. And we're like, no, you're not. Go away. Like leave us alone. Click. And right, so what that meant is they got the UConn basketball team and Paige Buchers herself walked into Reynolds Coliseum and it's red. Like there's no navy blue whatsoever, except immediately behind their team bench where we're required to sell them tickets. And from the first shot, you could tell like this is not an environment they're used to playing in, right? And I think that's a really powerful testament of what we do is that if we get the right fans in place, we can do big things. And, is to kind of move this along for what we've got coming up. 2 days after Thanksgiving, we play UNC and their brand new football coach is Bill Belichick.
Chapel Bill?
Chapel Bill, right? And so he's, right, as we've opened up some seating down in the lower bowl, right where the visiting team locker room is, right? It's typically student seating, but because it's Thanksgiving break, the students aren't there. We've opened it up for public sale. But as we're talking to fans, we've got some seats up in the corners still for that game. As we're talking to fans, if you're going to buy lower bowl seats, do not, right? We literally tell them, do not just sit there. If you're just going to sit there, we're putting you upstairs. We're still going to let you come to the game, but you're sitting upstairs. You go, why is that? Because we want it to be intimidating down there. Right. So like we'll call, right. Recent grad calls us. Absolutely. You're in. Right. Like I want you being absolutely buck wild so that when Bill Belichick comes out of this tunnel, he knows what environment he's in and he knows what fan base is here because we want him to be right. Like all respect to the NFL, right? Like those guys are amazing athletes and whatnot. The college space is different with fans. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I want him to have the real understanding for the first time of what college football is when he steps into Carter Finley 2 days after Thanksgiving.
Do other schools do you know if other schools do that same thing, or is that unique to what you guys are doing? Because I could see UVA doing the
Not
exact
do-
opposite and being like,
yeah.
"Excuse me, you need to be respectful."
Yes, go Carruthers. Please go sit
so
over
we're gonna
there if you want some
Take the
wine.
millionaire that is paying a shitload of money to go sit there in that spot, and we're gonna serve him mint julep.
I think it depends on your fan base, right? I think UVA is in this really kind of odd situation at the moment, right? Football, right? They used to be the team in the 90s.
At one point, they were ranked number one in the
Number
country.
one,
I
literally
believe,
number
in, like,
one. Yeah, right. In like the early 90s, they were the team to beat, and they're not there right now. I think they need to kind of get into that mindset again. Is like, how do we make Scott Stadium might be the most gorgeous stadium in the ACC.
was just
Right.
talking about today with people
Right.
about
Like
the same thing. Yes,
I
beautiful.
am jealous of this. Is funny, right? This is really full circle. My first ever NC State football game was at Scott Stadium with you, Nick. I love that stadium, and so it should be drawing in fans. And it's 2 hours from most of their fan base, 1 hour from Richmond, 2 hours from Northern Virginia. It's not a money issue, right? Like Nova and Richmond people have money to buy UVA football tickets. Okay, let's get them back in this building and let's do this the right way, right? And when you see a game against, right, James Madison last year, right, where the stadium's a third purple, even though they're a group of 5 school, right, they're still showing out. You've got Virginia Tech coming in there and storming the field. Like you got to question what they're doing as far as environment. And so you don't get that aspect, right? You've got to do something for your own fan base. I think we're at a point right now where we can get away with things like this and turn down ticket sales because of what we've done on the front end. There are schools that don't have that luxury yet. I talked to the guys at Boston College probably 2-3 months ago, and they were talking about, hey, like when people think of New England football, they're thinking the Patriots, right? They're not thinking Boston College. And he's like, how do we change that persona? Like, how do we change that culture? And I said, you guys have to lean in hard to the Boston culture. They're like, what do you mean? I said, what's your fan base look like? And they go, well, they're kind of preppy. I was like, when I think of Boston, I do not think preppy, right? Like when I think of Boston, I think of Matt Damon with way too many cuss words in a movie and down by the docks, like a little bit like the best beer he is ever having in his life is a Sam Adams. It was wicked hot. Yeah. And like, that's the environment I want. And like, those are the guys I want sitting. I don't want them on the home team side. I want them on the visiting team side. Because when the visiting team starts chirping because they're up 5 points, I want those guys getting back in their face to do that. But you have to go recruit that type of fan, right? And that means you really have to understand
the Sox
the
fans.
Yeah, right.
To go to the Boston College games.
Exactly right. And there's not enough tickets at Fenway. So like take the extra, right? Fenway is one of the toughest tickets to come by in the country. Go market to those guys. Like be that right? Go get those intimidators. I think that's the way I build that culture if I'm in that role. So
That's a
to get back to your question, yes, is we get to take advantage of it because of what we
because
built.
NC State.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's taken time, right? We weren't selling out games when I first got here, right? I think my second season there, we sold out 3 of our 7 games. My third season there, we sold out 6 of our 7 games, right? The first one being the only one we didn't sell out, and we have not missed a sellout since. We're the 9th longest sellout streak in the country. And that's right. We're at 22 consecutive. If we sell out the game against Virginia Tech on the 27th of September, we actually jumped to 24 consecutive because we've already sold out the 4th game. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
How do you? So I was thinking about this. How do you navigate the players leaving and going, coaches leaving and going, and promoting? Like, do you promote the environment? Do you promote a certain star player? Because I know like Concepcion just went to Texas A&M. And he was one of my favorite players. I was like, this guy's Tavon Austin 2.0.
yeah.
How do you navigate the portal and everything that's going on with that?
We don't focus on the player at all, the individual player, right? Is we focus on environment within ticket sales, right? Like when you go, I'm going to brag about our program for a couple of seconds here. When you think of ACC football in this area, we have 2 extremely close competitors. Like I literally work at the team 3rd farthest from me, right? So Duke and UNC are both closer to my house. And when you think of those fan bases, right, like there's kind of this like wine and cheese feel to them. And meanwhile, with our fan base, right,
Carruthers, let's get
right,
some
right,
more
with NC's
Chardonnay.
exactly right, and we're more on the like, hey, we hope you've got a T-shirt on under your overalls, but it's okay if you don't. And what that means is, right, like I've got a couple of guys that have RV spots, right, and the RV spots are probably like an RV and a quarter for each spot. And these guys will literally pull their RVs next to each other, but they park on the outside of their spots. So they've got this walkway down the middle. And for the UNC game, they will get a whole lamb, like a whole sheep to roast on a fire pit before the game, right? Because that's their game, that's their vibe. And like anybody who walks up, they're like, that's awesome. But like, they're like, cool, do you want to eat? And they're like, literally, like, they cooked it. But that's the vibe they're at. And because of that environment, right, like we could be 0-12 and people are still going to be coming to NC State football games because they're just so much fun. I mean, we control 19,500 parking spots on game day. We control every parking spot around the stadium for like 2 miles. Like we're renting out from businesses to have more parking. And I was checking the numbers today. We've got a couple of games that I'm down to like a dozen parking passes. And that's it. Because
So how's the tailgating scene? It sounds like it's a local, like a
insane.
localized
Yeah, like
one parking spot type of thing.
we how many, we actually have like 35 different lots. But like if you're still within the city limit, like that's a good sign. Like that means you've got a good spot sometimes. Like we have to bus people in because there's just not enough parking. And
Okay.
we're talking about like, there's people that want stadium growth, right? Like more seats in the stadium. And I'm like, yeah,
Where
but
these people
parking's a
gonna
big
park?
question with that. Like how do they get to the stadium so they can be there? But yeah, I put us right up there. Like they talk about the world's largest cocktail party down with Georgia and Florida. And I'm like, oh no, like throw us in there. Like we deserve a seat at the table because they just go nuts.
Yeah,
Love that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard from NC State alums that before they even like allowed, now that every school basically allows alcohol sales. I don't know if they do as well at
Yeah.
Carter Finley,
Yeah.
but before that, you were able to go in the stadium, leave, and then come back in. So they said like, hey, we would go tailgate, go into the stadium at halftime. We would make a decision on whether or not we wanted to stay because at the time they were in squad, I don't think NC State football was that great. They were kind of like in that mediocre level. So they were like, hey, we'll leave. We'll go back to the tailgate. We'll keep drinking. If we decide we want to go back in, we go back in. And they said more times than not, we wound up deciding to go back in, even if like it wasn't going well because it was like we could. Whereas other places would never allow you to do that. So like you talked about like UVA and their issues with getting fans in there. That's a big reason is that you go in, the product isn't good. You go, well, I might as well go drink cheaper somewhere else and watch a better product on TV because I can't come back in. If I could come back in, maybe someone would change their mind as they're sitting at their tailgate.
It's funny. I've got a love-hate relationship with pass outs because we still do that. That's a thing. So the thing for us, right, is if I take that away at this point, our fans are going to have my head. But so what we do instead is we're going to enhance the game day experience inside the stadium. Is we've blown out one of the corners of our football stadium and like taken away parking so that we can have this additional space that we call Hollywood. And over the last 5 years, our team has done a really good job of being able to enhance that space. We're putting in a stage this year. They just put up like big banners to cover it so that if it's a 95-degree game in Raleigh, that there's some shade to it. And all those things play into game day, right? Is now there's a reason to come back, even if the scores, we're playing an FCS opponent and we're routing them, or we're playing a team that's routing us, which hopefully doesn't happen, but occasionally does, right? Like there's still that environment there to have an excuse to come back in. So the combat there for us is how do we compete against the college football game day environment on TV? And it even plays into, right? Like one of our top competitors in my mind is Netflix, because you can literally sit at home and watch a great TV show, or you can come to a game. And like, which environment do you want to be a part of? We're no longer just in the business of sports, it's in the business of entertainment. And that means we have to play into those things and make sure we're showing that we're a good environment, not just for the product we're putting on the field. Is this overall is just going to be this fantastic game day experience.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about directly about NIL and like how does NIL affect your job? Like how's it made it different? And like what does it look like at your school? If you're able to tell us, if you know, like how does it affect your job? How does it look at NC State?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Our revenue stream for the most part is internal, right? So like I don't work directly with NIL, but it ends up being this sort of balancing act between making sure that our student athletes are supported through NIL, but then also making sure that we've still got enough funding through our scholarship fund. And right, because people are typically choosing between the two. And what we've done in the ticket office is we've said, hey, don't make people choose. Like make it so that there's enough support for the scholarship fund that if somebody wants to give to NIL, cool. Like I'm not competing for their dollars at this point. And that's a really cool thing to be able to do. We've The way our system is set up, right? You have what are called priority points, right? And you kind of build up your fan loyalty over years through both consecutive years of season tickets, membership, and then how much money you've given to the and within that creates this very equitable process, and it's super transparent, right? Like we haven't changed that algorithm since 1984. Like it's literally older than most of our or all of our staff, but like most of our our fans even at this point. So it's like, okay, this is the balancing act to it. And within that, right, like it used to be you could walk up on game day and pick out a ticket. And now, like if you want lower level tickets for football, you have to play that game, right? Like you have to make a big donation to jump to having no priority to having enough priority to jump to lower level seating. Uh, I'll let you guys guess here as to what that number is, but I will tell you it's more than what you're expecting and that's a good thing for our program because it means that people have to make that donation, but that's going to our student athletes in the form of scholarship dollars. And then anything excess of that is getting put back into our program, right? We just put in a $20 million scoreboard a couple of years ago. We're expanding Raleighwood. We're adding, I mean, I think each team has had a locker room redo, and that's all like 20 of our sports have had a locker room redo over the last couple of years because they needed it. Those dollars count. And I think that's the big thing we do on our end. The NIL ends up being extra to it. We don't have to offer as much because we're doing a good job, but that gives them the ability to go through and say, hey, like we are doing a fan meet and greet with players that traditionally would have been under our purview. But now because we're selling well, we don't have to use that as a kind of carrot with a stick. They get to use it. And that's how they're fundraising.
Interesting. I know, boy, you had an additional NIL question for
Yeah,
Peacock.
so I'm not sure if you're able to answer this or not, but with football, with NIL and the portal, I feel like we've seen it disperse talent and there's become more parity across the board. Have you seen something similar to that in the other sports? You know, basketball, baseball, maybe some of the lower level, or I shouldn't say lower level sports, but
Olympic,
sports
yeah.
that don't get as big recognition.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what culture you're in. And I think one of the really cool things NC State does is they develop guys, right? Is our football program, right? You never see us in the top like 50 recruiting classes. I would love it if we were, but like it's not there. But then at the end of the day, right at the end of the season, we're consistently flirting if we're not already in the top 25. And what that says to me is we're taking guys that are not, we're building guys. And I think that's one of the really cool things that NC State has built is you're not going to leave the same player as when you're coming in. And I don't think you can say that about every football program, right? As they do have this great recruiting class and then they don't perform to that level. Our program is consistently the opposite. I don't think we see quite the level of it at some of these other sports because they don't necessarily have the funding, the NIL funding, to compete for those dollars. And for the most part, right, it's like 99% of athletes aren't going pro in their sport, right? For the most part, they're going for their education. And I think with our Olympic sports, right, you're going to see more 4-year athletes. It's not to say it doesn't happen, right? As we see a couple of transfers year over year, as coach leaves, coach gets let go, and people enter the transfer portal. And so you're going to pick up as a coach, your responsibility is to go field the best team. I think that's subjective though, right? Is having the best team, especially in an Olympic sport, doesn't just mean being able to put wins and losses in the court. Is if you're going to say, oh yeah, this player is really, really good, but they're not a good teammate. I don't know if that's necessarily like, I don't need that for my volleyball program, right? Because one person's not going to completely change my volleyball program. They're just going to hit away from her. On the flip side, right? If I've got somebody that's a really, really good teammate and they can pull in other recruits because they're a good teammate when they're doing recruiting visits, that's somebody I want on my team. So the recruiting game is odd in that aspect. It's not just NIL dollars. There's still value out there in your team and the culture you build. It's not to say, right, is part of the reason you hear about the big dollars is because they're so big. And rarely do we hear about these deals that are kind of that mid tier, right? Is we always hear about the big ones and then, oh yeah, like these guys are getting a few bucks here and there. And you don't really, and that's because those mid deals don't really exist. And it's because you're either built in on this culture or you're not. And I think that's one of the really interesting things that's happened with NIL.
None of that oil money in Central North Carolina, that all the oil tycoons in Raleigh and Greensboro.
It's funny. Yeah, we don't really have, right, that's not really where our industry is we're, right, agriculture and manufacturing. It's funny, one of our big things is textiles, right? So like the guy who developed the patent for fireproof jackets that firefighters use, like he's an NC State guy. And right, but like we don't think of it, right? It's like, oh yeah, that exists, but like somebody had to develop that, and he just happens to be an NC State guy. He licenses that out, and he's a big NC State fan. He puts his money where his mouth is. That's where our revenue's coming from is those sorts of things. So we have to be more creative, right? We're not going to have some big billionaire donor come in and take care of our program. I hope it happens at some point, but that's not really how our program is set up. For us, it's a lot of these, like, I want to say $1,000 to $10,000 donations that add up, but it's across the board. Everybody's in on the ship and steering it the right way at this point, which is something really special about our fan base.
No, I love it. Oh, boy, anything else for Peacock?
We talked about your minor league experience. What was your favorite promotion in minor league baseball?
So favorite or like most memorable, I'll say, because I don't know if there's a line.
Both.
So one of the really cool ones, and I'm going to go back to the military on this one. One of my favorite promotions is we got a chance to work with the Presidential Salute Battery. If you guys have seen the Capitol Fort, the fireworks show on the National Mall, right? The big M for howitzers, and they shoot off the 1812 overture. Boom. We got to have them to our ballpark and shoot off M4 howitzers, which was one of the most badass things I've ever gotten a chance to do. I mean, it's like 35 different shots through the course of that song, followed by ending with a volley, which is all 3 different howitzers going off at the same time. And we shot them off from the right field corner. And so like over our stadium, there's like on the third base side, past the stadium itself is the parking lot. And we were setting off car alarms on the back side of the stadium. And I mean, we got phone calls. That's another one. We got phone calls of like, what the hell are you guys doing? And we're like, our general manager was laughing his butt off because he's just like, this is the greatest thing that people are calling in. And they're like, they forget that we exist in Bowie sometimes because we were kind of tucked back in a corner. And they're like, what the hell are you guys doing over there? We're like, it's the Army. Like, let's go. Like, we're shooting off howitzers. Yeah, America. It's like 11 o'clock at night and we're shooting these things off. So, but no, I mean, most memorable, I would say back hair appreciation night. I mean, just one of the grossest promotions. The promo was if you shave the number of the year into your back hair,
Yeah.
that you get free access to the game. And I remember sitting in the box office as people were starting to walk up. And we're like, we have no idea who this crowd is. Like, you kind of have it. If you can imagine people that are celebrating back hair, it's exactly what you expect. And so this guy had like cut out the back of his shirt to make it easily accessible to us, so we could see that he had shaved the number 15 into his back.
Yes.
And so we're like, okay, cool. And like, there's a picture of it. And then we set them up. The whole thing was sponsored, right? And so it was sponsored by a spa who does back waxing. But as part of the promo,
Genius.
like after the fourth inning, they set up a bunch of guys that had come with their back shaved on the top of the dugout and just waxed their backs on top of the dugout, like between innings. Just, it was disgusting. But I tell you what, the group that picked it up was ESPN. And right, for a minor league team to end up on the front, I mean, we were literally front page of ESPN. And for a minor league baseball team to end up on the front page, we were just like, what have we done? Like, and like, I think that was the value we got out of what we did, was just, we were suddenly like the stars of the show for 30 seconds, and people are remembering that we're here. We're picking up mini pack sales over and over and over again in like a 2-week period, because they're like, yeah, you guys made the news. Like, we decided we needed to come back for a few games. We're like, yes, sir. Like, we're in. So yeah, I would say that's definitely the most memorable of them.
I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
Pigot, thanks so much for doing this. I loved everything about what you said. It's so cool to learn all these different aspects of sports. Like we said at the beginning, we can have some fun along the way, because at the end of the day, like you said, it is entertainment. Like, we do this to escape the monotony of our day-to-day lives and give us that glimmer of hope and stuff. And so I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Couldn't have been happier to be able to see you again, man. It was awesome.
Great. Thank you guys for having me. This is awesome.
So that's going to do it for our special edition here. Again, we were talking to Director of Ticket Sales at North Carolina State University, Mr. Patrick Pigot Gotimer. Again, thank you, Pigot, for being on with us. For the boys, Stephen Vesci, I am the coach, Nick Vesci. Remind you to follow us on all of our socials. That's on X, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, Snapchat, and Threads at WCME_sports. Our normal flagship episodes will drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify, YouTube, and iHeart Radio, and all that information can be found on our website, WCMEsports.com. Again, remember, be decent to each other. Have a good one. We will see you next time. Take care, Guatemala.